welcome to the October 21st Ignite CDA board meeting. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have on the agenda an opportunity for public comment. Are there any public comments? Public comment?
That looks like a member of the public.
Oh. Do I just need to speak louder?
Oh, you don't have microphones?
Mics aren't on, I don't think.
They're not on.
Oh,
If they could turn up those microphones, that'd be helpful.
thank you, Chris.
Not possible with the Zoom feed.
Better.
Oh, I'll just try to speak louder. How's that?
Okay.
So, is there any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move to the approval of minutes for the September 16th board meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from the September 16th, 2020 board meeting.
Second.
Okay, any discussion, edits, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? That motion carries. Next is the presentation for the CDA Arts Commission Performing Arts Grant Program. Mr. Tymason.
Good afternoon, Board of Ignite. Troy Tymason, City of Coeur d'Alene. It's a pleasure to be in front of you this afternoon. We have 4 presenters that will do the bulk of the work, but I just wanted to bring you up to speed on what we are doing here today. We are coming before Ignite with 4 finalists for the Performing Arts Grant selection that we want you to be made aware of. As you know, you contribute greatly to the arts program in Coeur d'Alene, and that goes to an art fund. With your blessing and the council's blessing, we brought forward this opportunity for grants. Never been done before in the city of Coeur d'Alene. So again, the city has been a part of art since 1999. We've amended the resolution a couple of times to expand the way in which we can fund arts. So this is part of the expansion where we can do this type of art. Then we had 2020 happen, and we're still in the middle of it. It's a very serious situation, and the presenters today will speak to the impact that it's had on them. This COVID-19 is a huge challenge, and it has really impacted our live performances in our community. The professional performing art companies have been devastated, and we are seeking a way in which to keep them viable as we look forward to a 2021 and an end to this COVID. So this Performing Arts Grant is eligible only for professionals, and they have to be W-2 wage earners. So we have 4 of them that have been selected for you to hear from today. So the Coeur d'Alene Arts Commission and the City Council and Ignite have entered into this, and we also have a performing arts feasibility study that was done in 2018 that confirms the impact that the performing arts have on our community. And you are all about economics and a viable community. So we brought together this entire program so that we could have this opportunity. So the paid staff and performers contribute to our jobs and our economies. They help our city of Coeur d'Alene, and the recent events of 2020 have impacted them greatly. And our goal is to keep them alive through this pandemic and have them succeed in the upcoming years. So on the 15th of July, Ignite Board approved this recommendation by the Coeur d'Alene Arts Commission for a one-time Performing Arts Grant Program. We are funding this from urban renewal development dollars that were set aside for public art and are currently in the coffers of the city of Coeur d'Alene. This program is set up for $100,000. It was agreed during that meeting that the finalists selected by the Performing Arts Grant Selection Committee would come and make this in-person presentation to you and provide you the understanding of their financial position and how these dollars would be used, the business side of this. So they're going to give you concrete examples of the impact of this COVID on their operations. Following this presentation, the Ignite Board will make a recommendation to the Coeur d'Alene Arts Commission to either approve or deny the grant funding requests. These recommendations shall then be presented to the Performing Arts Grant Selection Committee, which is meeting this Friday, and we will then take the dollar awards to the Arts Commission, which is meeting next Tuesday. We will then be bringing that to council in November for final approval. So the folks that will be presenting have done all the heavy lifting. We are going to take 4 presenters here today. One will be on Zoom. The 4 presenters consist of the Coeur d'Alene Symphony Orchestra, the Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater, Chorale Coeur d'Alene, and Inland Northwest Opera. This grant award is $1,000 up to $50,000 per entity and must be used by the grantee within 36 months with required annual reporting to the Arts Commission so we can document where the dollars are being placed. Grant awards and amounts will be determined by the Performing Arts Grant Selection Committee this Friday and approved by the Arts Commission next Tuesday, and in November, Council will approve the entire package. So unless you have any questions, I will give you the batting order. And Inland Northwest Opera is on Zoom, and Dawn has done a great job. She's provided you PowerPoints here in person. So if there are no questions, I would invite Dawn to show up right there.
Here I am. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? We good. Awesome. Okay. So good afternoon. My name is Dawn Volsky, and I'm the General and Artistic Director of Inland Northwest Opera, which is also known as INO. I want to start off by thanking all of you here today for this opportunity, and especially want to thank you for allowing me to present virtually. This is a first for me, so I'm just keeping fingers crossed that technology cooperates, and hopefully it will. Today, I would love to first give you an overview of INO. One second here. There we go. Okay. Of INO, who we are, and what we had planned for this season. And then I'm going to dig right into the economic impact, financial stability, and most importantly, our future. INO was born right here in Coeur d'Alene 20 years ago as a small, homegrown opera company. We called ourselves Opera Coeur d'Alene until just 2 years ago, when we sought to fill a void that was left by the closing of Spokane Opera a few years prior. It took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but we have now become the only professional, nationally recognized opera company in the entire Inland Northwest. We have raised our caliber to include international opera stars like the young woman you see featured here, right here on our own stages. This photo was taken on the stage of North Idaho College. Fast forward to 2019, and INO is in fact producing exceptional opera, and we're receiving rave reviews. People now travel here specifically for the opera from California, from Oregon, Montana, Calgary, Arizona, and not only because our opera is world-class, but it's affordable, and it is set in one of the most beautiful corners of the world. Our performances are nearly sold out, including one of our most popular annual events, Opera on the Lake in Coeur d'Alene. So now to talk about COVID. Before COVID, INO was on a high growth trajectory. We had a fabulous 20th anniversary season planned for all of you. In the interest of time, I'm going to draw your attention just to 2 new programs that were on the docket for this year that we've never seen before. The first is in the top left corner. This is a new series called Interlude, where we bring world-class talent in for a luncheon concert and interview. This year we had Tau Pupua. He He's a Tongan tenor whose story is that he was an NFL football player, and after an injury, he went to his love of opera, and he actually became an incredible opera star. We also were launching CODA, which is our young professionals group, with opera-related social events exclusively for ages 21 to 40, which is really important for our community here, and I'll get back to that later. This was slated to kick off this past April. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about economic impact. As you know, when it comes to tackling this subject, we have both the measurable and the unmeasurable, right? We have the quantitative and the qualitative, and it is well documented that cultural amenities play a significant role in the growth of a city. Makes it more attractive, more energized, more diverse, and the people who are drawn to relocate or remain, which is actually what we're seeing more and more in this region now, in places like Coeur d'Alene with a vibrant art community. These people also become sources of additional measurable economic growth with the talents and skills that they contribute to our region. Now, opera specifically has its own little niche. It's what I would call a real litmus test for the vibrancy of a region's art scene. Now, I know that I might seem a little biased by saying that because obviously I run an opera company. But the reality of opera specifically is that it is hands down the most expensive performing arts genre on the planet. This is more so than orchestra, theater, chorus, and dance. And that is because of sheer scale. We incorporate all of those genres together into one incredible culminating event. To give you perspective, for INO to put on our fully staged and orchestrated Madame Butterfly last year, 2 shows, it cost us $150,000. It employed almost 100 artists, designers, and crew. Luckily, 85% of those were actually from our region, and we're proud of that. This is why it's such a boon to the Inland Northwest to have a professional opera company. INO is one of only 2 professionally recognized opera companies in the entire state of Idaho. The second being Opera Idaho in Boise, where they can claim nearly 5 times the population of CDA. So I'm incredibly proud for CDA to have its own opera. I'm also very proud of our educational outreach program, which is worth mentioning because the social impact that it has on our region also goes beyond measure. All right, coming up there. Okay, so Opportunities is our educational outreach program. We believe that everyone deserves access to high quality art, no matter who you are or where you live or your socioeconomic status. We believe everyone deserves this access. And so when we take art into our elementary schools, it breaks down those barriers to that access. And for some of them, it introduces arts for the very first time. This is a shameless plug here. This photo here is actually my son, just last year, here in downtown Coeur d'Alene at our public performance of the Toy Shop. He was only 3.5 years old in this picture, and he was cracking up hysterically. He still remembers the plot of this opera better than the rest of us, including me, and I directed it. And he affirms for us and everyone attending that day that you are never too young to appreciate great art. INO takes our children's opera to schools all throughout northern Idaho and eastern Washington. Most years now we have a wait list and we're looking to expand our program. And we also give public performances for adults and children whose schools we were not able to attend. 2 last year of these public performances were in the Lake District. And in fact, one was in the very library you're in today. So now for the measurables. Most of what's on this screen here, you're already aware of. The arts and culture contribute $2 billion each year to Idaho's economy, which is nearly 3% of our GDP. And attendees at nonprofit arts events spend an average of nearly $25 per person per event beyond the cost of admission. And that is going right back into our city. Opera on the Lake. This is our premier sold-out event in the Lake District each year. The numbers you see here are exact numbers from last season, from 2019, but it's worth noting that we had hoped to expand this event to 2 nights. This is a one-night event. We had hoped to expand to 2, and that's still in our hopes for the near future when we are able to. So you can actually see, you've probably been on one of these cruises, I don't know if you've been on a 3-boat cruise, but you can see this is an actual picture of one of our events. The 3 boats are lashed together, and right in the center there's a stage in the round for people to watch the opera. We bring 300 patrons to the Lake District, and just a little over half are actually Idahoans. The other 44% from last year hail from outside of Idaho, and we did have people as far as Arizona come in for this event. We had over $18,000 in ticket sales, which directly went back into the resort and into the district, as well as local vendors. $2,500, a little more than that, in the cruise bar sales, and over $7,000 based on the previous estimate there of patron spending beyond the cost of admission. So finally, I'm going to just give you a little bit of a snapshot of the financial health of INO and our future. Pre-COVID, Inland Northwest Opera was on a huge growth trajectory for us. When I joined as general director in 2017, INO had a 15% deficit. In 3 short years, we have more than doubled our operating budget, eliminated the deficit, and turned it into a 20% surplus in 2019, doubled the number of corporate sponsors, quadrupled our audiences, increased individual giving by over 570%, and expanded our season in 2020, as we showed before. And then we had COVID, fun times here. So I will say that it was a real blessing that we were positioned so well for growth as we entered this time period in our history, because as soon as we saw what was happening in February, I immediately put a halt to all the new staff hires that we were planning. We were absolutely determined not to eliminate any existing positions, but we did put a hold on that growth. When it became clear that our season events were not going to happen, I'm also proud to say that we did the right thing. We paid our artists, even though the events were canceled, a significant percentage of the projected earnings. So our earnings anticipated for 2020 from ticket sales alone was conservatively $148,000 from ticket sales projected, 100% of which was eliminated by the pandemic. So now our expenses have been tempered a little bit, of course, by not hiring those artists, but they have to remain fluid, necessarily so. I am the kind of person that has never once, and never will, as long as I'm at the helm of this company, I have never spent $1 I don't have, and I don't wait for ticket sales to reimburse money spent. As such, that ticket loss is significant, but it means that we rely and have relied so heavily on strategic planning, preparation, and on contributed income to ensure our success. And that's why we're here today, virtually, to ask if you would please endorse INO as an integral part of Coeur d'Alene's artistic identity. When asked to demonstrate how the grant funds will be used to cover the loss from COVID, I can actually only answer you this way. We are always looking forward, we're never looking back. To do this, innovation is key. Slide here. In order to be sustainable, innovation is key for us. So this is what we have done, and this is where we're putting our attention, our efforts, and the areas that we're asking for your help for the future and sustainability of INO. When so many other companies laid off staff and went dark, we created INO on the go. You can't get to us, we will come to you. So we brought mobile opera and intimate gatherings, operagrams, brought safely distanced opera arias to patrons' yards, and next summer we're going to be launching an opera truck which, if you can imagine, is opera on a flatbed truck brought to public parks and underserved neighborhoods at no cost to the recipients, but just to reach them and try to bring a little bit more joy in this time. We've had incredible response to these programs and numerous requests for repeat performances, which tells us that when we innovate, we create a higher demand. Next, we also are looking for meaningful digital content. And as you know, the digital market has become so saturated that it was important to us to ensure our offerings are personal and relevant to the community. So this photo here on the slide is from a new video series that we just began last month, aimed to collaborate with and feature other cultural institutions in the region. This video was the first, and it was in partnership with the Back Museum in Spokane for the close of their Pompeii exhibit. We plan to do something similar for each of the areas we serve, including the Lake District. Just wrapping up here. I hope I have another minute. I'm trying to be respectful of your time. Partnership and cooperation are really what I feel is critical for us to outlive the challenges that we are now facing. I talked earlier about the qualitative impact of the arts. We are all in this together, each and every one of us. And to that end, INO has extensively surveyed all of our patrons and donors. And we've been told by them unequivocally that the majority of our audience isn't ready for large-scale events indoors anytime soon. That's our main ticket revenue, is those large-scale events. But we believe that opera must be truly accessible and available to all. And so it has to be safe, and it has to be comfortable for all who wish to attend. The audiences, but also the artists who are on the stage. So this is an opportunity for us. It's an artistic challenge, which is kind of what we do best. So we have our 2021 season to reconsider and reimagine. And right now we're strongly looking at how we could structure an entire next season entirely outdoors, which, I'm sorry, but what better place in all of the areas that we serve to focus these efforts than this beautiful backdrop of Coeur d'Alene. So we're here today to ask for your endorsement and to say, I think it's important just to note that we do not compete with any of the other performing arts companies in Coeur d'Alene, and certainly none of the other incredible finalists who are here today. We each have our individual role to play, and I believe that community is united and strengthened most uniquely through the arts. It's a collective effort, and we're proud to represent Coeur d'Alene to the opera world at large. Coeur d'Alene deserves an opera company, and we are your opera. Thank you so much for your consideration and your time today in endorsing INO for this Performing Arts grant. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Troy, are we taking questions in between, or do you want?
Please.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Don? No? Thank you, Don.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Next up for the presenters today for your Performing Arts Grant will be the Coeur d'Alene Symphony. I'd like to introduce Jeff Crandall, Chairman of the Board, for the presentation and the guests that he has brought along. Welcome, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, virtually I believe, commissioners and officers of Ignite, Mr. Tymason and other members of the selection committee and members of the Coeur d'Alene Arts Commission who may be present. My name is Jeff Crandall, and I am the chairman of the board of the Coeur d'Alene Symphony Orchestra. And with me today is Jack Powers and John Batelli, our maestro Jan Palant, who's in the back, and other members of the board. And on behalf of the Coeur d'Alene Symphony Orchestra, we sincerely thank you for the opportunity to present our application for a Performing Arts grant. While I'm a native of the Pacific Northwest, I found myself way back in 1993 living in Southern California. Eager to return to the Northwest, I ordered a marketing video from the Coeur d'Alene Chamber of Commerce. And I was intrigued by the beauty of Coeur d'Alene, the refreshing community spirit, the small hometown feel captured in the video. But one of the prominent attractions to me was the surprising fact that Coeur d'Alene had its own symphony. And it wasn't a symphony that was shared with Spokane, it was its own symphony. Shortly after arriving here, my wife, a cellist, joined the symphony and has been playing with them ever since. And I became active on the board way back then and have served as their legal counsel since then. Over the years, I've witnessed how the Coeur d'Alene Symphony Orchestra has steadily improved, becoming a premier community symphony orchestra, a true musical gem that Coeur d'Alene and Idaho can be proud of. I believe the Coeur d'Alene Symphony Orchestra is an integral part of the Coeur d'Alene brand, that we enrich the community culture through transformative musical experiences, and we help drive the economic engine of this wonderful community, particularly the Lake District. We are here today because of COVID-19. We were well positioned for our future. We'd gone through significant strategic planning last fall. We were coming off of our best year of fundraising and had a wonderful season planned. But that all changed with the pandemic, and we've been hit hard by that. We made the difficult decision in March to cancel our March concert just days before that performance, after our young artist competition winners and their families had already arrived in town. That was a tough thing. We later canceled the rest of our season and have postponed most of the scheduled 2021 season as well. But with the help of this Performing Arts Grant and the support of our loyal sponsors and benefactors, we will survive, as will this community. We want to continue contributing to the health, vibrancy, and cultural enrichment of this community in the wake of this international pandemic. Now we're going to address the 3 questions you asked us, and I'm going to turn some time over to Jack and John to do that.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for having us here today. We want to answer your first question about our financial position and what the impact of COVID has been on that. And looking at question 1A, really looking at 5 years here leading up to where we are today, you can see that we have a modest budget and we have been a solvent organization with our expenses generally running below our revenues. We went through a nationwide conductor search in 17-18, and we had a little bit of extra expense that year, a little bit less revenue, and then we landed with our wonderful new artistic director, Jan Palant, and had just a tremendous success in our first season with Maestro Palant, ending in 18-19, very, very strong. And then COVID hit, and as you can see, the fiscal year that ended 19-20, we had 5 concerts planned like normal, and we were unable to put on 3 of those concerts. And so our revenues did fall below our expenses again, but we were on the arc of building the capacity of the organization like Jeff referred to. And then here we are looking at our forecasted 2020-21 season. We're in real trouble. That's a precipitous fall, and it's very troublesome for us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Troublesome. As a matter of fact, we feel like this patient in this hospital bed. We're in need of services. We're in need of a transfusion. We're wondering how we're going to pay the bills. But we believe that this grant will give us a transfusion that would allow us to survive and thrive. And I want to comment that we really feel proud that you invited us to be here today because it recognizes that we're part of the community. And we feel very strongly that indeed we are part of this great community, part of this great brand. And we think of Coeur d'Alene, and I believe many people out there as well, think of it as an oasis economically, technologically, healthcare, quality of life, the arts and culture, the great outdoors. In fact, I think it's a fair statement that Coeur d'Alene has an incredibly great brand that you all have been polishing for a number of years. So we're proud to be part of that brand, and we do, as Jeff said, we feel like we are an integral part of this brand. this brand reputation has precipitated this migration to this great area. Jeff, 23 years ago, he moved here from Southern California. My wife and I moved here from the East Coast 10 years ago. People are finding us, and as a matter of fact, I think we all saw that in the paper recently, that year-to-date sales through September, residential volume increased 21% to $1.1 billion. That's an astronomical, jump. I think it was from 836 million to 1.1 billion. I've observed a lot of businesses over time, a lot of industries, a lot of sectors. That's phenomenal, and it's obviously good for the brand.
You asked us to let you know what we will be able to do with the grant funds and how we'll put them to use. These grant funds will very literally allow us to survive, but really continue to thrive. With your dollars, we are going to live stream, in lieu of our audience performances this season, 5 chamber music concerts. And we've reduced the size of the ensemble for the safety of our players, and we have an excellent plan for putting these online for people to view from home. And then we're optimistic that maybe we'll be able to invite some people back into the concert hall, but we're not even going to look at that until after January. But our first 2 concerts are coming up, one in just a few weeks and another before the end of the year. Something that we have been planning to do with the help of your funds to help cover our performance expenses, we hope to be able to fund an arts card, which is an idea that we've had to cooperate with the other arts organizations in town. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that a little bit later. We're going to innovate our education and community outreach, try to continue to put on those special events that are a little bit more difficult to do with social distancing and other important considerations. And finally, we hope to return to the stage a year from now and beyond.
Don't click yet. So your third question you asked us was very specifically to demonstrate the economic impact of the Coeur d'Alene Symphony Orchestra on the Lake District. And we're going to address that very specifically. There are 4 streams of revenue that we account for. Direct retail economic impact, which is $56,000. And we're going to take you through all the math in a moment. The second way is with an expanded retail economic impact. And this is the arts card, and we're partnering with the Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater to do this. We're going to give you more detail, but I think it's innovative, and it's smart business. It's good for the Lake District. We have a macroeconomic impact that is quite significant. It's around $3 million. We're going to take you through the math in a moment. And then our fourth way is our education and community outreach programs. These are actually priceless. How can we put a price tag, a value on educating our youth, on helping them find the arts and culture and finding their way into music? And our community outreach, this is a way that we put on free concerts, and we are sharing and enriching and exciting the community. So let me take you through the math on the direct economic impact. So in our 2018-19 season, it was a sold-out season. We sold 4,000 seats. If just 20% of those ticket holders went to dinner, or 20% of those went out for a drink, or 2% of those had an overnight stay in the Lake District, that's how we arrived at that 56,000. I think it's a fair statement, assumption that is an understated number. And that $56,000 doesn't account for the $50,000 in ticket sales that comes right back into the community through production expenses, through salaries that people, the musicians spend in the community. So I feel very confident that that $56,000 is really an understated number.
The second tier of our economic impact really comes from that expanded retail activity through our promotion idea with the Arts Card. So Arts Card supporters would get a card that would have participating businesses, restaurants, hotels, bars that would offer some sort of a discount to holders of the Arts Card and generate excitement and revenue around the arts. Taking a look at the metro population estimate for Coeur d'Alene, just right up here coming at 2020, there's an estimated almost 170,000 people here in the area. So if we just found that 1% of those folks participated in the Arts Card, that's over 1,500 Arts Cards out there in the community. And we figure if an Arts Card holder used the card maybe once a quarter for a meal, maybe once a quarter for drinks, and how about one time a year to take advantage of a hotel stay, that's going to add up to almost a little over $750,000 in retail activity.
So let's look at that third way that we impact the Lake District. We're calling it macroeconomic impact. The fact is that that 170,000 population at a 2.7% annual growth rate represents 4,662 new population. At 2.33 average people per household, that's 2,001 new households. 2,001 new households. That's a number. So let's think with that for a second. If just 10 of these households, 10 of 2001, that's 0.5%. If 10 of those households are affluent, what we are referring to as affluent, culturally sensitive households, choose to move to Coeur d'Alene because of the arts and culture, they pack a big punch. These 10 households, they're buying large homes, they're paying property taxes, they're contributing to the local charities, supporting local churches, schools, and startups. They buy boats and vehicles and their insurance here in town. They use services in the medical corridor. Some of them set up local businesses. Okay, if just one of those 10, which was 0.5% of the new households, they represent $3 million to the Lake District.
Okay, the fourth element of our impact, again, is priceless. And this is our education and community outreach. This is really the foundation for the future of our organization and the way we contribute to the community. And so hopefully many of you are familiar with taking advantage of some of these opportunities in the past. Perhaps some of you have been to one of our Saturdays with the Symphony event that we've put on at the libraries and the hospital with help from other generous local sponsors. Our free concerts that we put on annually. You've probably seen us at Art Walk. Certainly the Labor Day concert in the park, Riverstone Summer Concert Series, and Art on the Green, to name a few. We maintain a family ticket pricing program, trying to encourage folks to be able to get in and become exposed to the live music. Every January, we dedicate one of our 5 concerts as a family concert. The whole thing is themed as a family concert. And in the recent years, part of that has been a children's melody contest where we've had K through 6th graders from all across the district write a melody, and then a few winners are selected, and college students over at Whitworth University orchestrate that, and then those kids get to hear their melody kind of grown and expanded, performed by the whole orchestra. Recently, we've developed a music story project. This is a program where we open up our dress rehearsal for folks to come in from the schools, but not only that, we develop curriculum materials and send it out to teachers in advance. So if they choose to, they can kind of study up and get ready and then come and see the main event. The Coeur d'Alene Youth Symphony, every year we invite them for that January concert to do a side-by-side with us. That's one of the most exciting experiences for those young musicians, and really for the musicians on stage as well. And then finally, we host a national young artist competition. You could say it's an international competition. We have entrants from overseas even. And we bring 7 or 8 finalists in for a tremendous, exciting concert in March before closing out our season. So again, all of that adds up. We're not going to put a number on it, but we do believe that it's priceless.
We believe the local performing arts complement the beauty of this region and provide a cultural experience that's second to none. It's one of the reasons why so many are choosing to live here in Coeur d'Alene. And the Coeur d'Alene Symphony Orchestra, as we've demonstrated, is a major contributor to that beautiful music that resonates from the shores of our treasured lake. As I mentioned, we are part of the Coeur d'Alene brand. We help drive the economic engine in the Lake District. We contribute significantly to the vibrancy of the local economy. And we have the unique opportunity, our musicians and others, staff do, to lift spirits, to enrich souls, and transform lives in ways that only music can. So we thank you for your consideration of this grant application, and now welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Jack, John, and Jeff?
Thank you.
No, very nice presentation, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Who's next, Troy?
Troy, I got a question for you. So, just looking at this, there's $100,000 available for distribution between the four various entities that are chosen to present today. Do we have an idea of what the minimum amount they could receive and still get by on? I see what they're all requesting, but there's not enough funds to fund all four of them at the full value they're requesting.
That is correct. So the subcommittee will be working on that. As you know, the grant goes down to $1,000, and we have one that has asked for $10,000. So I would imagine it's going to be the divvying up of approximately $90,000.
So I guess the one question I would have for all three of them that are asking for $50,000, how much could they get by on if it was less than $50,000?
I was going to say, I participated in the subcommittee that, with the Arts Commission to talk about this, and part of the conversation with it was kind of a bit of a struggle about, do we do the peanut butter version, or does the Arts Commission do a peanut butter version where they give them $25,000 each, or something like that, or do we try to figure out how to, or did they try to figure out how to make it more impactful? I believe that's part of what the subcommittee is going to be talking about on Friday, is trying to kind of look at the details of the requests and what the uses are, and try to manage that. That's one of the reasons I didn't feel it was appropriate for Ignite to weigh in on the dollar amounts that each of the organizations got, because I felt that was much more the bailiwick of the performing arts, of the Arts Commission.
And I agree, Sarah. I agree. I was just curious if they're in their presentation, if they could say, we would love $50,000, but we could get by it with $35,000, type of thing.
And I guess my response to that was, I was hoping I was expecting that the Arts Commission subcommittee would dig into that a little bit and try to make sure that it made sense.
Thank you.
I would just say this reminds me of a conversation we had just last night dealing with groups who requested funds, and, do we, serve more for less, or less for what they really need. And so whoever has to decide, I feel your pain.
We would like to bring forward the Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater, and we have with us this afternoon the chairman of the board, LaDonna Beaumont. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see so many familiar and friendly faces today. Thank you. I'm pinch hitting for our executive director, Jeff Conroy, who has become ill, and he was thoroughly looking forward to the meeting and had also prepared thoroughly, so you're stuck with me this afternoon. I hope I can do justice to the theater that I dearly love. I actually, as a child born and raised here in Coeur d'Alene, appeared on the Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater stage one time in 1980. So I've sort of come full circle, realizing that is not my gift, but I will support in other ways. I'm very happy to do so. As Troy said, my name is LaDonna Beaumont. I currently serve on the board of directors for Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater as president. When I accepted the position, I congratulated myself for choosing the easiest possible year in the organization's history, with a solid, dedicated, talented staff, an exciting season, and an enviable financial statement. If featuring very few red numbers. The congratulations didn't last very long when the pandemic hit, of course. Like most of us, I had no idea what was in store, and that is what brings us here today. To really understand the Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater, it helps us to reflect just briefly on our genesis. Established in 1967, way before I was born, of course, Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater was formed at the little theater that is now on Garden and 15th Street, and is Idaho's oldest performing arts organization. CST became a nonprofit corporation in 1984 and specializes in production of full-scale Broadway musicals during the months of June, July, and August. Our multi-talented performers are recruited nationally, and many have gone on to appear in film, television, and in professional venues, including Broadway, stages, and tours. We also feature orchestrations performed by the region's most accomplished musicians. Last year at this time, Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater was coming off another successful year. In 2019, we sold 12,039 individual tickets. 7,195 of those tickets were sold to locals to Coeur d'Alene and Spokane. 4,844 tickets were sold to audience members from 28 states and Canada, including Alaska and Hawaii. Financially, we were in a very strong position at year's end, and we were ramping up to an impressive 2020. The annual budget actual for 2019 was $495,050. We were in great shape moving forward with money in the bank and ever stronger community partnerships. So after the pandemic hit and things shut down, what happened? What did we do how do we react to that is the question. When it became apparent that COVID would lock us down, we, the board of directors, moved swiftly. For 2 months, we met every week to review contingency plans, to cut expenses, to cut them again, and to cut them again. Shows that were slated for 2020 were ultimately rolled over into summer of 2021. The staff was furloughed, and we accepted PPP funds to keep those dedicated individuals afloat. The executive director eventually resigned as a money-saving measure. As you can imagine, with no product to sell, our income plummeted. Revenue dropped a staggering 94%. Our graph looked very much like the Coeur d'Alene Symphony graph, as you can imagine. We didn't have any tickets to sell. We didn't have a performance to sell them for. Our annual administrative payroll went from $75,000 to our current $6,285. We are limping by, but we've managed to stretch our resources to stay afloat. We continue to be solvent, operating in the black. Since the lockdown, Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater has been incredibly frugal. We contracted a new executive director, Jeff Conroy, on a part-time contingency basis. We have one very part-time employee to answer emails and a few calls as they come in. The board steps in when additional services are needed. We have been very active on social media to stay in front of people and keep our patrons informed and engaged. We have been proactive to reduce fund requests. We have been proactive to reduce refund requests and have created and promoted the hashtag Bringing Back the Fun in 2021. We're really excited about what we're going to do next year. We have created marketing and fundraising promotions for Halloween, Black Friday, and Christmas with some early success. And we have applied for and received a few small grants to keep us moving. We just began an individual giving campaign which wasn't in place before. This program includes a new producers club for gifts of $1,000 or more. Also, to end the year, we are reaching out to those who have supported us in the past but haven't given yet this year. These two programs will net us enough income to get us through 2020, all the way to December 31st. We have also been staying in communication with the over 9,000 patrons on our mailing list with a new monthly e-blast that will become weekly during summer. So what's our plan for 2021? While Broadway isn't opening until May of 2021, as an organization, we look forward to our shows in July. During this time, we have been in communication with those actors who have signed on and want to remain cast members. Of course, our entire season last year was already cast, and we have communicated with those actors, and the vast majority of them are coming back. A small handful of cast members, of course, made other plans for 2021, and auditions are being planned for February. We will continue our marketing and fundraising that will include show sponsorships. The Producers Club will continue to grow, and there will be special events and access for those members. So you also asked us how these funds, if granted, will help us. To answer Mick Arman's question, we applied for $50,000, but we could get by with 45. Just kidding. Staying afloat, of course, is one thing, but an impressive comeback and a blockbuster season is a completely different thing. After hobbling financially into 2021, the funds from this grant will be heaven sent and allow us to create the high-quality entertainment we are renowned for. Our plan is to restrict these funds until January 2021 and use them to launch the new year exclusively. The first 6 months of any season is spent gearing up for the upcoming summer season. These funds will allow us to bring back our very talented artistic director so he can start auditioning, building sets, and rehearsing. We can start hiring and contracting actors and musicians for the season. These funds will also allow us to rebuild staff for increased operations. The impact of Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater on our community is a little bit, it's sometimes ambiguous, it's hard to define, and I think, of course, the Coeur d'Alene Symphony did a very good job of that, extrapolating numbers based on ticket sales, et cetera, and I'll attempt to do that as well. Using just 2019 as an example, we sold those 12,039 tickets. At an average of $40 per ticket, that is close to $500,000 in revenue on ticket sales alone, flowing into our community to fuel economic activity. Those patrons eat, of course, and if just half of them spent $60 on a meal at an area restaurant, that inspires an additional nearly $400,000 spent in Kootenai County. For those who come in the area from out of town, imagine if half of them or a little bit more stayed in a hotel for just one night, that brings an additional $500,000 economic activity. I feel that a very conservative $1.4 million of additional impact is something we are very proud of, especially if it happens over a mere 6-week period. So the numbers that we've extrapolated there are just from our main season in 2019. We have a variety of activities that exist that we produce outside of that main 6-week period, of course. In the spirit of creating a stronger arts community and a stronger community in general, we are teaming up, as was previously discussed, with Coeur d'Alene Symphony to create the Arts Card, a mutually beneficial arrangement that will improve exposure and impact. We are also resurrecting our long history with NIC to form another layer of win-win scenarios, focusing on activity in the Lake District. A grant to CST is a solid investment in the future of performing arts in North Idaho. I want to thank you, Ignite CDA, and of course Coeur d'Alene City Council, in particular Kiki Miller, who has been a longtime champion of Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater in particular and performing arts in general. Thank you for all you do for our community, and thank you for making these funds available to allow performing arts to survive the pandemic and thrive next year and far beyond. Thank you so much for your time and for your consideration tonight.
Thank you, LaDonna. Are there any questions for LaDonna?
Thank you, LaDonna.
No, thank you.
And recognizing the players that have helped with this, LaDonna recognized Council Member Kiki Miller. I'd also like to recognize the Chairman of the Arts Commission, Jennifer Drake, for her work on this and her continued work on this. Our fourth presenter will be Chorale Coeur d'Alene. Patricia Pat Matson is here as Vice Chair. Welcome. And she has a guest.
Well, I'm not exactly a guest, I'm part of the deal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll introduce us.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Matson, the Vice Chair of the Board of Chorale Coeur d'Alene, and with me is Hank Brockling, who is a board member and also our production manager. We'd like to begin this afternoon by thanking you for this opportunity to present the needs not only of our performing arts organization, but all of those represented today. It's a wonderful thing for you to consider supplementing what our needs are at this particular time. We have a short video that we'd like to begin with to introduce the chorale to those of you who may not or may be familiar with it, and just about a minute and a half.
Can't hear the audio.
The chorale was formed in 2001 here in Coeur d'Alene as the Northwest Sacred Music Chorale. We have enjoyed the opportunity to present throughout our history the fabulous choral music from across the centuries, classic and contemporary, sacred and secular. Our membership numbers somewhere between 70 and 80 singers per season usually, and range in age from the teens to the 80s. We are all volunteers, with the exception of our paid artistic director and our professional accompanist, plus contracted musicians, orchestra, and soloists for some of our concerts. Usually we present 3 concerts per year of about 3 to 4 performances each, about 10 total. This past season, of course, we've not been able to do any of that. So we are hoping to resume our goal of making music, bringing people together, and inspiring lives as soon as possible. Since the grant application was written for you, our board of directors has decided to completely discontinue promoting the possibility of a spring concert this year, and instead to resume our full concert schedule in the season of 21 and 22. We're a nonprofit organization, a 501c3. As I mentioned, we're all volunteer-led with the exception of a few paid professionals. We use existing venues. We do not own our own facilities. And our budget is somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000 per year. Our income is from member dues, ticket sales, advertising, fundraisers, grants, and gifts. And again, our expenses are primarily for the director accompanist, the venue fees, promotion, printing, supplemental orchestra, and the youth awards. We do support youth in our community through our Young Artists program, which honors talented high school students from across the region. And we also offer a choral scholar program to pre-professional college-age students. So our application for our funding has to do primarily with funds to cover for 3 years our venue expenses and also our music storage facilities. We would be very appreciative for your consideration of funds to supplement our needs in that respect.
Well, I just want to say, I'm production manager and also sing in the chorale, and I wanted to say that I think one of the gifts that...
Microphone, please.
Oh, sorry about that. I couldn't even tell that was a microphone in the office. I'm production manager for the chorale. I'm also on the board, and I sing in the chorale. This is my 6th year. And So I've been there long enough to know, we've had a wonderful director named Stan McDaniel who's featured there, and this was to be his last season, and so, but so now he's retired because we had to cancel the season because of COVID. And we too are hoping to start performing again a year from now. And of course, it's all going to depend, like everything else, on what happens with the virus and vaccines and all that kind of stuff. So, but I think our chorale is just a great gift to this community in many ways. A lot of our patrons are seniors and come from retirement communities and other places like that. And we really are about upliftment. We have partnered in the past with the symphony, and we partner with children's groups and other such things. So I think our request is rather modest. I mean, we really are a smaller scale operation than everybody else has been here, but our need is just as great on a different scale. So anything you can do to help us, we take whatever you give us, is what I'll say. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sarah, do you have, since you served, and thank you for serving on that committee, do you have any recommendations for the board here?
Oh, I would wholeheartedly recommend that this board approve the Arts Commission moving forward with the granting process of the funds that we've already given permission for them to use in this manner. I very much want to express my appreciation to the organizations who presented tonight. I know it's very stressful, and it's been a long process for you, and it's still a little bit more time to get through all the hoops that need to be gotten through before the funds can be released. But I've learned a lot about our performing arts community through this process, not just the organizations that we've listened to tonight, but reading through the applications of the other groups who applied. But I will wholeheartedly say that I feel the selection committee did a great job of vetting through the process, and I feel very comfortable that the people who we've seen present tonight meet all the criteria that we originally agreed to for the grant. So it's my recommendation that we approve the Arts Commission and City Council moving forward.
Perfect. That actually sounded like a great motion.
It did it? Okay.
I would second that motion.
Any discussion?
No, I just want to thank Sarah for her work on this and the presenters today. It was appreciated. Thank you. And Jennifer Drake. It was a great idea.
I think there's a lot of work behind the scenes that have been done on this for a lot of people, Arts Commission included, so thanks to all of them.
Yes, thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Keep on forgetting that he's on the phone. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you for all the great presentations and all the work put into it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, now up is a presentation. Jack Riggs, the CDA Rotary Foundation Sherman Pocket Park acquisition. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm Jack Riggs. I'm here on behalf of the Rotary Club of Coeur d'Alene, which is considered the downtown or Friday Rotary Club. First, as a little bit of background about our club, many of you, I'm sure, have experienced or seen some of the things that our club has done through the years. The Rotary Band Shell, it used to be the Rotary courts, the tennis courts from the 60s, helped with the pavilion down in McEwen Park by the boat docks, and many other projects around town. The club, by way of background, is almost 100 years old. In fact, we'll have our centennial in about a year and a half, and that's really what created this this connection. Our club decided to have, to save up some money and do a centennial project basically in honor of that 100-year anniversary. and went through a process over the last year of identifying a number of potential projects around town, and then has narrowed it to 3. One of the 3 is what's referred to as the Sherman Square Park, the pocket park between 3rd and 4th Street on the south side of Sherman. And I'm here today to essentially introduce this concept, and I'll start out by saying there's also some unknowns, because our club is going to have a process where the club membership votes on which project they want to move forward with. So I'm standing before you. I don't have certainty that they would choose this project. Personally, I think it would be the best project, but there are some other things that would have to be done in order to even move forward. Because the other contingency would be the park is currently owned, this is the site of the former Woolworth store that burned in, I think, April of 1980, and it's owned by a family in Seattle. They previously had a connection to Coeur d'Alene, the family. There was a elderly aunt who lived here but has passed away a few years ago. So the main person in Seattle now used to come and visit, several times a year, but since his aunt's passing, really doesn't get to Coeur d'Alene much. I think, as background, I think there had been some discussion potentially with the Downtown Association, and I don't know the details, potentially Ignite. I know the city had an interest in acquiring the location to keep it as a park, and up until, I believe, this year, the owner in Seattle essentially said he had no interest in selling it. Part of that is because the Downtown Association was managing it, and I know Chris Gugemus, was managing the information boards, which created enough income to pay the property tax. So the owners in Seattle said that the park was being managed well and it wasn't costing them anything, so they were very happy with the status quo. I did make contact with the owner in August and had a good conversation and kind of described what our Rotary Club, potentially could have interest in acquiring it and keeping it as a park. And he said that he potentially, would be interested in that. I think you probably are familiar with the park. There's a view from above. It's a little under 0.2 acre. It is on the south side of Sherman, and it. I know John Mueller is here, and I think was involved in some of the design of developing a park. As I said, it was the site of a Woolworth store that burned down, and I remember the day of the fire, but I don't remember exactly what transpired to actually create it into the current park. So part of the discussion, I think, is that I think anyone can see that because it is privately owned as a park, it is at risk because with some of the growth that we've been seeing in this area and the appreciation of land values, so this area that is being used and has been used very heavily really through the years, and it's kind of in a center spot in a prime part of downtown Coeur d'Alene. If it's sold to another private party, certainly, something, we could all imagine something would be built there. And probably from some people's point of view, that might be the best use of a downtown piece of property. I think the park has been so heavily used, however, that I think it's almost one of those things that I believe many people would hate to see it go away because it's become such a part of downtown Coeur d'Alene. This, just as a reminder this is a photo of the Woolworth building, and again, as in a downtown, I mean, it was natural to fill in the spaces, but that's what we could imagine if this park was sold to another party. So what we're talking about in concept, is an opportunity for our Coeur d'Alene Rotary Club and to essentially partner with Ignite to acquire this piece of property and to keep it as permanently as a park. The concept being proposed, I'll say today, is that with this partnership, the concept would be that it would be a gift to the community, really to the city, through the partnership with Ignite. Our Rotary Club, of course, is interested in having Rotary's name and a Rotary, branding to the area. The Rotary Club is always interested, its motto, service above self, of having more awareness in the community for Rotary. And the Rotary concept would be that, this could be a gathering spot, into perpetuity in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Just a couple more photos. That's the view of the park from above. This is a view from the alley. This is one of the summer evening concerts last summer. And it actually, interestingly, has a view of the lake from the park. So, bottom line, the Coeur d'Alene Rotary Club has approximately $300,000 that's been earmarked for its centennial project. If that could be partnered with Ignite to the tune of $500,000, we feel that the park could be acquired and then improvements would be done. Obviously, Rotary would like some prominent signage and some Rotary information. There would probably be new landscaping, new lighting, and then other possibilities you can see. These are just concepts. Nothing has been drawn specifically to this point or formally conceptualized, but there's numerous improvements that could be done to make it a even more welcoming park. So, in summary, this would be named for the Coeur d'Alene Rotary Club Centennial. It would be eventually owned by the city, via the Ignite process, and it would be maintained either by the Downtown Association, who's been maintaining it, or it could be by the city. It would be something that would be determined, in the future. So that is it. Thank you for your consideration. I certainly try to answer any questions. I tried to keep it brief, but I probably do know a few more things about it.
Well, Mr. Riggs, quick question. I understand the property is being offered at just under $500,000.
I can comment on that, but you can ask the question.
You're asking for a total of $800,000, so you're looking at improvements approximately at $300,000 on the property.
Correct. In summary, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what would be the minimum that you could get by with from Ignite to pull this deal off? I like this deal a lot. I really do. The 500 seems like a lot.
I'll give you a little bit of background. Because actually I think Ignite and Downtown Association were trying to figure out something, with the owner. There was a broker's opinion done in July that came up with an estimated value of, I think, around $430,000.
$430,000.
When I spoke to the owner, however, he was very gracious, but he said that one of the comps for that broker's opinion at $1 per square foot would have priced it at $511,000 for the property. And that's why we don't have, I would hold to say, I don't know that it's a verbal agreement. He seemed very willing. He liked the concept. He was familiar with Rotary, liked the idea of Rotary being involved in keeping this as a park.
I do too.
The family liked that, but he never said exactly how much he would want for the property. So that's that's one of the unknowns right now. It's like, okay. I believe standing here today that they are willing to sell it, but they have not specified a precise price. So that's some of the unknown.
So it'd be up to $500,000 would be the commitment.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
In full disclosure, I'm also a Rotarian in that club too. And to answer your question, Jim, I think that it comes down to Rotary has $300,000.
Right.
So whatever amount that Ignite doesn't go towards funding the purchase of it, the club would have to cover. which takes away from the amount of upgrading and, you know, whatever new features we'd want to put into it. Personally, I think it has the ability to be a state-of-the-art park down there, that you could have music venues and all kinds of things.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, I
I
think it's got
agree.
great opportunity.
Commissioner English?
When will you know which, it seems like maybe we're ahead of things, when will you know which of the 3 possible projects you want to settle on?
The club has presentations on November 13th. I would say, based upon the input that I've received, if we can get confirmation from the owner and a commitment from Ignite, I think clearly this would be the project. In my opinion, clearly, now, you know, elections, you know about elections. But I believe, and I think Mick would attest, you know, if things that we're hearing, if we can put a deal together, this would be the one that the club would select. And I also emailed the owner in Seattle earlier this week, and then I emailed again yesterday. I didn't want to bother him, just in anticipation of this meeting, and I haven't received any word back yet. But from our previous conversations and emails, the family liked the idea. It was just a matter of figuring out what price they may want.
Commissioner Jordan?
So this has been off and on the radar over the years, and we've talked about this property. The question I would have, and I'm not on the finance committee, can we even afford to buy this? I think it's great for the downtown, and you know, the Lake District sunsets the end of next year, so.
Well, I am on the finance committee.
Yeah, I know. So, fill me in.
So there's a couple of options. Number one is, one of the things that the owner said to Jack when he spoke with him is that they would contemplate possibly taking the payments over a 2-year period. So, you know, 250 this year, 250 next year. We can easily do that. We've got 250 in reserve right now and for special projects, so for this current year. Tony, you can talk to the budget too, and the fact that if push came to shove and we needed to, we could probably figure out a way to make this work in this current fiscal year too, for 500.
Yeah, and still have money to close out the district.
Correct.
There's sufficient funds in the budget for the next 2 fiscal years to fund this initiative at this amount if the board so chooses.
Well, we've talked about this. I think it's a real asset to the downtown. I just say real quick, just a quick piece of history. There was a full basement under that building, and they had, you know, retail in the basement there. A lot of us older people probably remember going in there. And after it burnt down, we had a big hole, and then they had brown painted plywood across the sidewalk on Sherman Avenue. So, you know, we've heard about the Boise hole where the new office building was built a few years ago. I guess this was the Coeur d'Alene hole. But that went on for a couple of years, and then Don Johnston, the former mayor, and Tom Robb got together, and they enlisted, I think it was the local National Guard, and they got some fill, and they filled it in and did volunteer labor and kind of turned it into what it's evolved into. So that might be lost to history. But anyway, I thought I'd just mention that.
Thanks, I didn't know the history.
Give them some credit for that.
It's good to hear it.
And I think Don told me years ago the light posts in there came from the University of Idaho, if I recall right.
Well, it's just another trip down memory lane. During my brief tenure as a Coeur d'Alene volunteer fireman, that was the highlight of my career, is fighting the Woolworth fire and holding a hose going down in the hole all night long.
You were filling the hole, huh?
Whatever that's worth.
I didn't know you
This
filled
is
the
all
hole.
very interesting, actually. I think
Obviously, it's got a lot of history.
It's got a lot of history.
Yeah.
So I think we're looking for a motion for commitment of up to $500,000 so he could go back to the Rotary Club.
I'll make that motion. I will. I want to see this go through. I really do. This is important. Terry Cooper was very involved in this and very passionate about it. So I'll make a motion that Ignite CDA will go up to $500,000 for the acquisition of Pocket Park if a sufficient number comes in from the owner.
Second.
A reasonable number. Would that be 500,000? Would there be any input on that? If the comes in and goes, I want the 511, would we meet that offer?
Any discussion?
What are you saying, Jim? If it came in higher than 500, you're
Well,
saying?
he said he was thinking maybe 511 if he looked at the square footage. That's where the owner's head is right now.
I'm hoping the owner likes Coeur d'Alene enough, and there's a family history, and they love Coeur d'Alene. Maybe it'd be closer to 400,000. I mean,
Or put his name in there or
We're
something,
stretching
or
at 500,000.
give him some recognition,
But
Or maybe we just
I'd
commit
support
to-
your motion, whether it's 500 or 510, but the negotiation is a whole separate thing. But I would hope maybe we could, the family would look kindly on Coeur d'Alene a little
I
bit
agree.
when the negotiations are going on.
And for my second, I am comfortable up to 500,000.
Okay.
Tony?
Ms. Vice Chair, if I might suggest maybe a couple conditions on that motion?
Please.
That maybe one condition might be that the Coeur d'Alene Rotary Club chooses this park project for the club's centennial project, and possibly that the city of Coeur d'Alene agrees to accept ownership of the property for the proposed park use should this be
That's
the
reasonable,
chosen project.
yes.
That's perfect. I was actually wondering
Those
the
aren't
same
bad
thing.
ideas, Tony. Yeah.
Great. As amended, do you agree to that amendment? Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you
I'm
very
excited.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Jeff.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate the historical perspective as
Good
well.
luck with your committee. And thanks, Dan, for helping put the fire out.
Yeah. He has to put a fire on.
Maybe he went to go put out another fire. All right, reports. Finance, Commissioner Arman.
Almost had cut up and left myself. Okay. Finance, I guess I gotta get back into the swing of things here. Okay. Finance report. In the Lake District balance sheet, under the assets column, the Lake District experienced $471,456 decrease in cash assets from August month end. On the receivable side, due from the Atlas District, $1,147 increase from August month end, reflecting the Atlas District share of G&A costs. Due from the River District, $360,489 this is a new line item capturing the accounting methodology for the costs incurred for the formation of the Health Corridor District. The Lake District paid these initial costs, and due to the pending termination of the Lake District, this Health Corridor District debt obligation is being transferred to the River District, which has a longer lifespan, giving the Health Corridor District more time to retire the debt obligation. Under fixed assets, no change. Other assets, Lake District 2016 Series Note Reserve Account increase of $51 for the month of September. Liabilities and fund balance bonds were no change, and all other liability parameters were either unchanged or normal for the month, including the 2% credit to the due to arts line item due to the county increment check received in September. The Lake District P&L. The revenues, Lake District received $7,153 in tax increment revenue for the county in September. Expenditures, agency-funded initiatives. The Atlas Waterfront project was $348,393. The breakdown, the following. Welsh Comer Team, $38,222. Tila Riviera Contracting, $310,171. Professional fees. This $354,835 credit reflects inclusion of the planning and legal costs incurred by the Lake District for the formation of the Health Corridor District. All other P&L expenditure line items were in line with normal operating month. Moving on to the River District balance sheet, the assets. The River District experienced $165,892 decrease in cash assets from August month end. We had a deposit from Kootenai Title, a new line item of $36,625 for Bluegrass Area 1 deposit transfer to Kootenai Title escrow. Due to the Health Corridor District, new line item at $360,489. The Atlas receivable of $6,350 increase due to additional loan funds to Atlas District for the mill site project work. Other assets were no change. The liability and fund balance, all liability parameters are either unchanged or normal for the month, including a 2% credit to the due to arts line item due to the September county increment check. River District P&L revenues. River District received $5 in tax increment revenue from the county in September. Developer cost reimbursements were $0. These are fees paid to Ignite by Atlas project developers for civil design work. Ignite in turn will pay Welsh-Comer to perform the civil design work for these areas. Expenditures, agency-funded initiatives. The Atlas Phase 1 waterfront project, $65,708. Breakdown the following. Welsh-Comer team, $15,215. Tila Riviera Contracting Waterfront Project, $50,493. And Tila Riviera Contracting Phase 1, $0. Professional fees line item, higher than usual due to the work by Holly Troxel on the Atlas project, plus payment to KMPO of $7,137 for the Health Corridor District Traffic Study. All other P&L expenditure line items are in line with the normal operating month, including 45% of G&A cost share expenses. Moving on to the Atlas District balance sheet. In the assets, the Atlas District experienced a $109,861 decrease in cash assets from August month end due primarily to the transfer of developer deposits to Kootenai Title. Deposit, Kootenai Title new line item, $109,875 from Bluegrass for areas number 1 and number 2 deposit transfer to Kootenai Title escrow. On the liability and fund balance, due to the River District, $6,350 increase due to additional loan funds received from the River District. Due to the Lake District, $1,147 increase for G&A costs. In the P&L, the Atlas District received $0 in tax increment revenue from the county in September. Expenditures, agency-funded initiatives, Stimson Mill Site Atlas Project Phase 1, $6,336. Breakdown, Welsh-Comer team, $6,336. Tila River Contracting, $0. All other P&L expenditure line items are in line with normal operating month with 5% G&A cost share. And finally, the Health Corridor District balance sheet. Health Corridor District had no assets at this time, and liabilities and fund balance due to the River District, $360,489 for legal and planning costs incurred from the formation of the Health Corridor District. The Health Corridor District P&L received no tax increment revenue from the county, and the expenditures were the above total of $360,489 for legal and planning costs incurred from the formation of the Health Corridor District. That is the financials for all 4 districts for the month of September. And now moving on to payables for the month of September. First payable was for Elam and Burke for $320. $40 were general legal counsel and legislative issues, and $280 were legal counsel for the River URD and the Atlas project. The second one is a little bit larger, legal of $16,089 for Holly Troxel, $486 for general legal counsel, and $15,603 for the River URD, the Atlas project, A&Es, DDAs, and Master Association documents and title work. We're going to see a lot more of that. The next expenditure was CDA 2030, was our annual payment of $25,000 this contract we've had with them earlier. The next payment was for $360,489 for the Health Corridor debt reassigned to the River District. The River District reimburses Lake District for Health Corridor planning costs. The next big line item is for the Atlas Mill Site Initiative, $8,340.50 for the Welsh-Comer team amendment number 8, Phase 1 infrastructure design, $48.70 for the Welsh-Comer team amendment number 9, Phase 1 Heartland A&E DDA Welsh-Comer fees. Next one is for Welsh-Comer team amendment number 11, developer funded infrastructure design and planning for $39,200. Next one is for Welsh-Comer team amendment number 12, land use planning including the Triangle property for $14,800. And the next one's for Tila Riviera construction for the Atlas waterfront project of $715,810.32. And the last payment was for Northern States Security for Atlas Mill Site Security for $9,760.34. All total for the Atlas Mill Site Initiative was $787,392.34. $959.86. Total expenditures for this last month was $1,189,857.86. Those are the payables for that month.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the monthly financials and payables?
I move that we accept the monthly financial.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is Commissioner Widmeyer still there?
It's gone.
Any opposed?
Oh, Olivia, I was a little short on the unmute button. I'm here, and I'm a affirmative.
Thank you. We just didn't want you falling asleep.
Yeah, I promise. I'm not asleep.
Okay.
No, no, my dog Russell might be asleep, but I'm not.
Thank you. Okay, that motion carries. The parking report, Commissioner Jordan?
Madam Chairman, Commissioner Chapkus is going to give you the report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will do that. It's gripping news. We actually, with COVID, we still beat parking revenue from the previous year. So we beat revenue by about $11,301, which was, I thought, amazing. As far as pass sales, total passes sold for the garage were 260. That was up about 8 from the previous month. Resident passes were 179, and the county resident passes were 72. We are continuing to research new signage, wayfinding signage. We've identified 3 prototypes we're going to use. It's going to be reviewed by a committee next month, and hopefully we'll be finalized that. We'll be able to start installing new signage for parking and pedestrian wayfinding. And that's all I've got right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tony, can you take us away on the Executive Director's report, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. First item, agencies, Riverstone, Bell Reeve. First item is agencies, Riverstone, Bell Reeve, Railroad right-of-way request for proposals. See if I can bring up a graphic for everybody to look at. So just for some background for the viewing audience, the Ignite Board has been considering possible uses for the agency's remaining railroad right-of-way pictured here in the Riverstone, Bell Reeve area. At the July 2020 board meeting, Welch Gomer's engineers shared a potential use of the property as a public parking space amenity for the community. And then at the August 2020 board meeting, the Bear Waterfront LLC team proposed purchasing the Ignite railroad right-of-way ownership to create deeper residential lots along the riverfront, as well as to create several public amenities and possible additional public parking. At the September 2020 board meeting last month, the board decided to seek proposals for development of the property. So that kind of brings us today. So I crafted a RFP document that I've shared with the board that has input from the City of Coeur d'Alene Planning Department and the Engineering Department as requested. The intent of the agency is seeking business owners and developers who are prepared to pay no less than fair reuse value of the property and who are willing to develop the property for purposes and uses in conformance with existing City of Coeur d'Alene zoning regulations, comprehensive plan, public works design standards, and the Lake District Plan. The agency envisions a thoughtful development project that integrates well with the surrounding uses and complements and enhances the adjacent Riverstone, Bell Reeve, and Atlas waterfront projects. The project will include some public benefit, such as public parking, open space, recreation, public access to the Centennial Prairie Trail, or other such uses, amenities that are accessible to the public. So that's a brief overview of the RFP that I've shared. And I would seek, well, one other item I can share is that as far as timing, if the board agrees to proceed with this RFP, I would propose that we publish the RFP on October 26th and have proposals due to the agency by January 8th, 2021, with execution of a DDA by March of 2021. So that would be kind of an accelerated process for this proposal, mainly due to the expiration term of the Lake District, which is quickly approaching. So it would answer any questions that the board might have regarding the draft RFP.
Tony, just out of curiosity, so if we're in the process of dispersing of this property, and I'm just looking at the calendar here, you're saying the execution of the DDA by March 17th, 2021. If we're in the process of something and the district comes to a close, are we allowed to follow through and continue the finality of the project?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we might run into the same situation in Midtown with
Sure.
the DDA in Midtown too, but we are able to carve out certain assets or projects within the district and carry them beyond the termination if we need to.
Thanks.
Good to know. Yeah.
I would make a motion that we move forward with the RFP on this property.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you.
Next item, Madam Chair, is I'd like to bring up Phil Boyd to provide the board with Atlas project update.
Just popped up.
I was hiding back there. Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commission members. I'll just start moving through our discussion and update today. I'm going to cover 5 items. The park project update, talk about phase 1, talk about the master plan update, and then 2 proposed amendments on the agenda for A&E, DDA, and development management, and then entry monument preliminary design concepts. So the project is moving along. For the most part, it's finished. Thank goodness. They're still going to be out there working for probably until the snow flies, just doing some planting,
Oh, by the
hydroseeding.
way, that's this weekend, so just.
Yeah, good point, good point. But they'll also be doing some punch list stuff throughout the winter. There's quite a few punch list items, and we have just laid off them. And not made that a priority because we've been focused on them using their staff to get things planted. And as usual, I'll show you a few pictures. There's the playground. You can see it's completed. I think, as you guys know, Ignite funded the purchase of the equipment, and Bill and his crew installed it, and LaRiviere helped with parts of it and hauled the chips in there. And you can see the playground's ready to use, which is why it has continued to be fenced. So they can't get in there and use it. This is a picture at the end of the picnic area, and I took this picture just to show you, obviously that's a pretty fantastic piece of infrastructure that came out of the mill, this mill. So you can see that in there. This is actually a location for an interpretive sign, which would likely involve some explanation there. You can see that this is missing the big flat plate that the interpretive sign sets on, because if they're powder coated, if we leave them there, someone will carve their name in them. So we've taken them off of there and stored them. And you can see the landscaping is being finished. A lot of the plantings are in, the trees are all in, the lighting's completed. The lights work at night if you were to go down there. All the flat work is completed. This is a view looking upriver. You can see that the log boom is in. So the dog park is way up there, and here's the ADA launch, the swim ramp, and then you can see the trees are planted in here. The hydroseed has been shot down. There's a little bit of growth in it. Our expectation is that the entire project will be rehydroseeded next year, just because they're so late in the process. And LaRiviere has agreed to do that at no cost to the project. This is another photograph just looking downstream. You can see the restroom, picnic shelter is up in that area. We're actually starting up the irrigation pump today, which is why there's so many vehicles in the parking lot there. You can see roses still remain to be planted in here. Still some more plantings in that area, topsoil going down.
Saw some native bull pines.
You did, yes. Not a lot of them, though. This is a picture from the top looking down at the dog park. This dog park is, even when I go down there now, it's still
fantastic. It is a really great dog park, and I think it's going to get a tremendous amount of use. This is the entrance to it. It is set up for small dog side and a big dog side. The one thing that's missing is the middle fence, because Bill didn't want to put that in yet, and he's going to let the park kind of go. And I think we've talked about this before. Parks are never really completed. You know, you kind of get the bones in there, you get the big features in, and then over time, things get added to the park, and that might be one of the elements that Bill decides to put in there. You can see North Idaho Maritime here is driving in pilings for the log booms that run all the way down to what we call the landing. There's a picture of the restroom building and the picnic area. So I think it turned out pretty neat. I think if the board remembers, Louvier did this out of reinforced concrete to be able to move the construction along more quickly, and ended up staining it, and I think it's turned out, they look really nice. Well, it looked like a mill building. So obviously the project's behind by 7 calendar days right now. We'll eventually come back with a recommendation to the board, but at this point, Louvier knows they're behind schedule. In theory, they're subject to liquidated damages at this point, and we'll talk through that and whether the board decides to assess liquidated damages or be made whole in some other way, whatever way that might be, additional plants, some other assistance or features that the Riviera might provide to the board. But right now there's 7 calendar days over. So moving on to the Phase 1 update, just to refresh everybody's memory about what Phase 1 is. So this is the area in red. So it includes areas 10, 12, 1, 2, 8, 6, and 13. 13 isn't colored red, though, and the road that connects the two. So those are the areas that are construction is going to start. We had originally anticipated starting on October 26th with the utilities complete February 1, the underground utilities. This interim milestone was just to add some additional pressure to the contractor, the Riviera. There's also liquidated damages associated with that. And then the final completion date is May 14th, 2021, and there's serious damages associated with that. We're not sure we're going to be able to start on the 26th because the triangle parcel are not accessible. And if the board remembers, last month I presented a couple of different options, and I'll re-show you those here again. So Plan A would be wait for the triangle parcel soils. Talking to Mike Gridley at the city, he's anticipating that maybe they'll have possession of the triangle parcel by November 2nd, that week. Talking with Le Riviere, I said, you know, what happens if we wait until that time to cut you loose? And he says, well, now we've crunched him down, or he's gotten crunched down so tight, he would like to have his contract extended 1 week. Which may not be an unreasonable request. I don't know that, certainly extending February 1 week doesn't hurt us. Extending May 14th to May 21st, the buyers, the people that are buying the dirt may say that might be an impact to them. I kind of think it's not, that 1 week. So that's one option, consideration for the board. The other option would be to go in and move a portion of Mount Hink soils here, because underneath that area, there are structural soils, which we intend to do at some point in the process. And it's kind of always been in our plan to do that. The problem with doing that now is I don't know where we're going to move these Mount Hink soils, because this area still isn't fully vetted out. We don't know exactly what shape it's going to be. We could just take these unsuitable soils on the top, move them over here, and it may be perfectly fine. It could be that we move them over here and say, gosh, we really didn't want them there, we wanted them over there, so now we're going to pay to move them twice. The risk of that is, you know, maybe we're going to go spend $80,000 doing that now. It's probably not wasted money, but it could be wasted money. So that's Plan B. Plan C is to just simply say, we're not waiting for anybody, let's just import soil from off-site and spend more money. So I'm just laying those 3 options out for the board to consider. My recommendation would be we wait a week, but there is risk associated with that because Le Riviere's window is closing by that time. And this time of year, I think as we all know, every day counts, because if it freezes and it can cascade. My second recommendation would be Plan B. This is actually budgeted money that the board authorized in a previous contract amendment with La Riviere. We just have not pulled the trigger on that because when the triangle piece came into play, everything kind of stopped. And I just, as Tony and I worked through this, I didn't want to make any moves, and we didn't want to make any moves that might paint us into a corner, so to speak. So I might pause there, Madam Chair, just in case there's any questions, because I've loaded you guys up with a bunch of information.
I got a question. So Phil, the back end is where the concern is, because obviously there's not a lot of concern about giving Tila Rivera an extra week. How solid are the buyers of the property if we extend them another week? Yeah. I mean, are they okay with being another week extended out, I guess is the bigger question.
I would anticipate, and this is my opinion of it, that's not going to have a material impact on them, because if we think about somebody starting a house right now, the fact, are they going to be done by May 14th? Maybe they could be. That's a pretty aggressive home building schedule, and I know it can be done.
Right.
But I would anticipate, a 1 week extension. And remember, the important feature is they need to be able to pull a CO on that house and move in Mrs. Jones into it, and we don't want to be the impediment to that.
So the only risk we would have is if somebody did start construction over there and the house was ready by the middle of May and we're not ready to deliver.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't see that being a big problem.
The other one that gets a little bit dicey is, and the contractor probably would be unlikely to come after us like that, but you know how one delay can beget another delay. And so, I would have started on this, which would have allowed me to do all this, but we got the deepest freeze known to man, which stopped my construction. And that 1 week delay stopped everything, and so now I'm going to be June 15th. And we would be in a predicament at that point. So if there's no kind of, strong opinion, we'll probably just wait for the triangle parcels to move forward, because that's the current direction the board's given me is we want to wait and wait for the triangle parcel soils to be available. And when we get those, we'll move forward with phase one. So in the absence of some other direction, that's the way I'll proceed.
I think so.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Then the next one, I'm going to use this graphic for two things. One, I'm going to give you an update on the phase two master planning. And just to refresh everybody's memory, this is what our development currently is kind of concepted at. Once the city acquires the triangle piece, that'll change things. And so we're now looking at modifying that, which the board's authorized that work. We've started on it. And, the objective of that work is to figure out exactly what can we do with that triangle piece and how do we integrate it into the project. We also want to review kind of two different development options once it's integrated, and then figure out the best way to dispose of that property from a revenue stream side. And I think we've had this topic before about, are we going to sell in bulk, which is just sell the block and let the developers decide what to do within the block, or are we going to divide it up into lots and sell it at some smaller increment, in theory, to get a higher value? Those are kind of the two primary objectives of this effort that we're going through. We're working on that now. We're updating the financial feasibility model. November 3rd, we have our steering committee, which is made up of representatives of the city, consulting team, Ignite, some board members here. We'll go through those, look at the two scenarios, and then we have a workshop on November 10th. Yes. So that's kind of the status of that project, and it's moving along. The triangle piece is interesting parcel. There's a lot of slope to it here. It's not a gigantic parcel, so as we have tried to fit things in there, there's a little bit of a challenge to do that, but we think we've done the kind of the highest and best land use option there to generate revenue and property values for increment, because we can't forget about increment.
How many acres is that?
It's about 3.5, I think.
Yeah, it looks bigger.
Yeah, the other part of it is, I should have this off the top of my head, the portion of it that's actually flat, because there's quite a bit of it, the top of the bank, so to speak, is kind of right up in that area. So the area that we have to work with is not gigantic. The big thing, not to get too far off course here, but one of the big things that, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version so I don't get too far off course. The thing that this has allowed us to do is there's quite a bit of material in here, and I think if everybody remembers, right in here, pit 1 has a bunch of unsuitable in it. And, you know, that's sitting way out in the future to remediate that pit. One of the things that has come out of our process is we've developed a street network in here that allows us to develop the triangle piece, borrow the material out of here, and perhaps bring this area online, meaning ready to sell, 2 or 3 years sooner than we had previously anticipated. And obviously in the current market that we're in, if we're able to bring this online sooner, that's a huge win. That this is the genesis of that win. And I'll get into more details about that, and I'll actually have quantities and figured out if we can truly accomplish that. But that was, I had that in the back of my mind as a hope, and I think it might materialize. So there's some exciting things that I anticipate will come off of this.
Yeah, I guess this will get figured out at the workshop meeting. I'm hoping we can maximize the money for the taxpayers there instead of wholesaling it out. So anyway, we'll figure that out later.
Well, and that's the objective, again, is to show the board, you know, here's option A, sell it at a block level, and here's option B. I don't know that we will get to the lot level, and that's probably Danielle's area to advise you on that, but we might be in, do we sell it in groups of 2 or 4 or increments of 4 and 8, however that works out. But we'll have those scenarios mapped out for you so you can give us direction on how to proceed. On another topic, entry monument concepts, I think as everybody knows, when you go into a subdivision, there's entry monuments, and that's one of the things that's kind of been in the back of the mind of since the beginning. When we first started working on this, what are the entry monuments looked at? That's seemed like low-hanging, or a pretty low priority issue. Now that we have developers on board, they've actually asked us, hey, what's the development logo? What can we use to market our product? And what kind of things are you doing to create a sense of place here? The park certainly creates a sense of place, but that's down at the waterfront. And in these 3 entry points, there is no sense of arrival or place or things that you would customarily have at the entrance of a subdivision. So I tasked Del Hatch. He and I put our heads together to think about that. These are the types of things that Del did. He put together this, we'll call it inspiration or kit of parts of scenarios. Some of these he's done, or his products. Some of them are, I think, things he's pulled from other locations. But the idea is to go into each of these areas, identify the areas, what's suitable to put an entry monument, and develop 2 different concepts for the board to look at. And the reason I wanted to do 2 different concepts is there's kind of one end of the spectrum, you know, the low budget one, you go in and put that thing in there with nothing else around it, or there's the big budget one with a bunch of landscaping and lighting and who knows what, and try to create 2 different things for the board to consider and look at. So our scope of services under this would be 2 preliminary entry monument concepts. We do plan views, topographic, perspective sketches, you know, how you've seen those sketches that Dell does, and a cost estimate with them. And we'd review those to the board to take direction and either go forward or just table it. But you guys could pick one of the 2 or neither one of them and have us kind of go back and look at them. This isn't like a critical path element, but I think as we move along, and Tony can comment on this as well because he's heard from the developers, what are you doing to create some sense of arrival and place? Because I'm going to have people moving in here. But that's kind of the origin of why we brought this amendment forward. Glad to answer any questions on that.
So you're going to stay with the mill concept, with the design, that whole thing?
I can't even remember if what the words were that Dell used with me. The thematic underpinnings. That's what it is. When I was asking him about this, he says, well, I think we want to be consistent with the thematic underpinnings of this site. So I obviously have to practice that.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And then,
Sorry.
is it, I've seen big developments where there's a thematic underpinning of this big, let's see, the macro concept for the development, and then within the development, there's different sub-areas that kind of have like their own little monument of going into it. So, I mean, what direction are we going? Does the whole encompassing area have its theme, and then we'll maybe have some sub-areas that tie in with the whole area? There's a couple options on this.
There is, and
create this sense of place there.
Yes, and so what Dell and I have talked about, and along with GGLO, and GGLO is obviously the land planner, but also does a lot of landscape architecture, so they all kind of get kibitzing on this. Their vision is that the site is such a size that it needs to have one theme, that you wouldn't have kind of a myriad of themes in it. And there are different areas to put those themes in. One of the things you'll see when we get to the update of the master plan is there's some additional open space that may be achievable over here because it's not really good for anything else. It's not you can't really develop it. And there's pedestrian corridors that are going to end up through this area again because I don't want to get into too many details and get diverted here, but there are areas where we're going to have open space. And those are where you could put in monumentation that is still consistent with the entry monument theme as well as the theme of the park. So it all ties together and is integrated. And I think that signpost, that configuration, steel and wood and bolts and things like that are the idea Dell is going to pursue.
Yeah, it's a big piece of land and it's a legacy project. So I could see there's an overall logo or look for this whole project that ties it together, and there may be some different neighborhood areas within this, but it's still got that logo that kind of ties everything into this legacy project.
And Tony had mentioned street signs or corner monumentation that you could also incorporate this in.
Wayfaring types of stuff.
Yeah, we can produce marketing material that comes off of the logo, which I think we've all seen the Gaza Ranch logo and things like that.
So have we developed anything like that or even any concepts?
The part of what this effort would do would be to develop the logo. There had been some interest from some of the developers to maybe they would bring forward a recommendation of a logo. And then as we thought about that, does that create some sort of, well, my logo is better than your logo?
Yeah.
And when I mentioned it to Dell, he was horrified because he doesn't want, he's got a lot of ownership, and we all do have a lot of ownership in this project. And he says, gosh, I will just do the logo as part of this. And he says, I'll produce the graphics just so we can make it be consistent with the vision that the community set out. Because remember, this started 3 or 4 years ago, and he was just really passionate about making sure that we maintain the continuity with the original thinking and visioning. So he was going to do it just as he just offered it up. So you guys might not like the logo, but at least you'll see initial.
Well, I think we can work with Dell. I've worked with Dell over the years, and he's talented at that.
Bill, I'm sorry, this is Brennan. I'm sorry I had to excuse myself, but for the monuments to the whole project, is that what we're talking about for the logo, or for the actual individual kind of subdevelopments within it?
The entire project. So I think the project would just have one logo to it. Is the vision is that there would just be one logo. Sorry, I'm through these slides. I'm trying to get to this one. There would be one logo for the whole project. The entry monuments would be here, here, and here. And they would each be a little bit different because of the land area that we have available to us and, site distances and all those things. But the idea, Commissioner Mandel, was that logo could then be used here and could also be used by all the developers as marketing material because we're now part of the Atlas Waterfront project.
But would they not also want something like, I know, for example, Forest Heights in Portland, they have the Forest Heights at those entry points where you have the stars, but then each developer for their 10 lots, 20 lots, whatever size or configuration, they also have something that is smaller scale that delineates their project or development from the others. And there are certain design standards within that. They have to follow stone, grasses, whatever it is, but that there are kind of their branding and logos within the overall project.
I think that might be a possibility, but the feedback we had developed within the team, and we've only talked a little bit about it with Tony, but was that we have the potential to get too many sub-areas in there and to clutter up the look of the development. And the idea of keeping a consistent theme throughout the entire area, because, there's, in theory, you could end up with 6 or 7 different people who want logos in there, and now it becomes confusing. That's not to say that's the end all, but I think we can certainly have that discussion as we move forward with it, and you guys look at the proposed scenarios, and we'll talk to the developers about it. They may say, we don't want to do that. If you guys are going to do a cool logo, we'll take your cool logo and use that.
Yeah. But what they want now is an overall logo for their marketing purposes. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I understand from them, is that's what everybody wants to start marketing their product here as soon as they can and want the neighborhood look and feel. And so that's what we're trying to get ahead of here, is to produce that for them so they can use your product, your vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I support Dell developing that for us to review.
I don't know how good of an example this is, but you take Coeur d'Alene Place, you may or may not like their logo, but you take Coeur d'Alene Place, and that's was started in the early 90s, but they have a logo and a look, and the different areas, different neighborhoods will still have that look of the logo, but they'll name the different neighborhoods. I'm just thinking of that because it's something close here we've all driven through. I'm thinking overall it needs to tie together. I think what you said, if everyone starts to go with their own logo for their neighborhood, it's only so big. I think we're going to cut it up and make it confusing. But I think Brennan and I are kind of on the same track, though. I do think should be some identity for some of the different neighborhoods under this common theme of this legacy project.
Yeah.
So this is Amendment 16 for the monuments for Dell to, or is this for engineering services?
It has both in it, because we've got to
Okay.
produce a bunch of background stuff to Dell, and we'll work with them, because we're going to end up having to put water and lighting and other things into that site. So it's Dell's a subcontractor to us as part of the project, and so it includes both our services.
There's a lot of weight on Dell's shoulders because, like Brennan said, he's talented, so a lot of us are counting on how talented Dell is to come up with something that's world-class here.
So was that a motion I heard, or is that?
Hopefully.
Well, is that to, this budgeted amount here?
Contract Amendment 16?
Yeah, do you have any, to make sure of what we're getting, do you have any suggestions for language, Tony?
No, I would just say the motion would just authorize the proposed cost of $77,750 for 2 entryway signage monumentation concepts and a logo.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Do we limit it to 2?
Each.
That cost.
At that cost, all right.
What's the time frame on this, Dell? Or for
In a perfect world, we would bring you guys something forward next month, not at the November 10th workshop.
November board
Yep, but at the next meeting, because we've been thinking about it. So Adele's been thinking about it, we've been talking about it. We're kind of itching to get going on it.
Now, say there's 2 concepts. When we have our review of it, we might be able to say we like almost everything about this concept, but if you could take the couple of items from this concept and put it in your second option, you know what I mean? We could,
Yeah, I do, because at some point, this has to get reduced to a set of construction documents
Right.
that you can give to somebody, but we couldn't estimate what that effort is now, right?
Right.
Because we don't know what you're going to pick. That's why the idea is to bring 2 concepts forward, allow you guys to say, I like that, I don't like that, can you change the logo?
Yeah.
Now, go back and put a proposal together to put that into a set of construction documents that we can get pricing on and permitting on, because again, we're going to have to permit it and do things for it. So, Commissioner Jordan, the answer is yes.
And does that budget number then kind of get us reduced to the final The final concept?
It doesn't, it will just do the final concept, but it won't take it through producing construction documents, because that's a
Right.
whole more detailed
Right,
effort.
but this'll get us through the
Yep.
process to get a final look, and then we're off and running.
Yeah, because
Okay.
again, one of the
All
things we
right.
want to produce is a logo to get out to people, so we can move forward with that image.
Perfect. So we have a motion on the floor in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Oops, sorry.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And then Amendment 9A.
Yep, thank you. I'll move it. This one's a little bit more in-depth, because I have A and D. It auto-corrected. That's supposed to say A and E.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was thinking different than
Yeah,
yours.
dang it. So this is about the A and E, the DDA and the development management. So I wanted to refresh the board on how the process moves forward, considering you guys are a URA and you have a specific land disposition process. So we go through solicitations, which you guys remember. We developed an RFP. We, meaning our team, Danielle, Tony, the board, the steering committee. That stuff gets reviewed. There's board consideration, negotiations. We move back through more negotiations. The board looks at it. At some point, you guys authorize Tony to kind of just advance that ball. On phase one, we're kind of in this A&E, DDA agreements, where we're getting actually things signed and money deposited, which you guys have seen some of that. And then we're going to move into the developer plan submittals, because remember, they have to submit something to you to confirm it complies with the development standards. And then eventually you get into developer construction. Well, at the center of that is Ignite, because you are really the master developer. And I know I've talked about this a little bit before. It's kind of unique to think about a URA being a master developer, but that's your function here. You have a team underneath you with Welchcomer, Heartland in the development process. There's also more over here, but mostly it's Welchcomer, Heartland on our team side, Holly Troxel, and the city of Coeur d'Alene. So all of us are kind of within your square helping you advance the ball. Our functions that when we're helping you advance the ball, are services like this, where master planning, working on the RFP, commenting on the A&E and the DDA, providing exhibits, working through the selection, those that remember we sat in our conference room where we're doing all the selection process and the scoring. The big one is developer coordination. One of the things that's happened is we've got developers on board. My phone starts ringing off the hook because the architect's calling me and the developer's calling me and the engineer's calling me. Can we do this? And can we do that? And why is it that way? And why do we have that? And can we move that property line? So there's a tremendous amount of that happening, which of course forces us to go back and coordinate with the city. And eventually we're going to be into developer plan review. Heartland has a bunch of services that they're providing as well, because just as a refresher, Heartland's kind of world they live in is helping public entities develop large-scale parcels of property from a real estate advisory standpoint, and figuring out what's the marketability of it, how do you strategize in order to protect the URA from a bunch of risk, so you don't get into the situation, the whole dialogue, all the way back, do we sell it at the block level? Do we try to sell it at less than that, or do we just open it up and just sell the entire 60 acres? Remember, that went into an RFP. Those are all advice that Heartland provides you. They've also done a lot of work with Danielle and Tony on transaction support, negotiating strategies. They keep track of this myriad of milestones that are mind-boggling within the DDA. We were looking at their spreadsheet today. So that's the services that Heartland provide. When we originally started down this path, this was actually in our conference room at our office, a number got thrown out that said, hey, $105,000 to move forward, and I think there was a comparison on, compared to a real estate commission, that's a pretty good deal. Right now, what we're estimating to finish through the project is going to be more like $140,000, which is about 1.8% of the $7.6 million land sale. So still, I guess if you're comparing that, that's a pretty good cost associated with that. A lot of the things that Heartland does in here, some of them could be done through another source, a broker of some sort. Lots of them could not be done, like the master planning, the financial modeling, working with Tony and Danielle and myself on the A&Es and the DDAs, and just that general disposition process, and also kind of this overall strategy of a public entity disposing of lands, because there are nuances to that are completely different than if you were a private entity. So anyway, we had worked through that $105,000 budget, and we're bringing forward an amendment for $140 that would take us to complete phase 1, and I think complete phase 2. And the reason I say I think, and Danielle and Tony can also comment on this, there's been a ton of time and effort that has gone into the DDAs and the A&E, figuring out exactly how those are shaken out, what kind of pushback we get for developers, the negotiations, where does Ignite have some room, where does Ignite not have some room. And, I don't want to say the die is cast, but I think there's a pretty strong feeling on those are pretty in good shape. We don't have to revisit a ton of that going forward. So moving into phase 2, I'm estimating there's about $100,000 worth of work to move through that, but that is also dependent on the final number of lots and how many buyers, because if the board says, hey, we've got 40 lots we're going to sell, and we want to sell them at the lot level, and we're going to do a DDA and A&E on every single one of them, the number's going to be bigger than 100. So that's just something to put in the background. The work is completed on an hourly basis as directed by Tony, so we do things under direction to move forward on that. So that's what the Amendment 9A is brought forward to the board for.
So do you anticipate future amendments based on other services that are needed? And is that projected in the model?
Yes. So when we did and this is actually something we can bring up at the board workshop, when we projected on the original financial feasibility study, we have this gigantic spreadsheet that has everything in it from legal services to engineering fees to pipe to moving dirt. And obviously some of it was pretty roughly estimated, right? Because we don't know. But Heartland gave us a lot of guidance on that as far as what do you anticipate for development management and things like that. So we populated this gigantic spreadsheet, developed a financial model out of that, which showed at the bottom it's financially feasible. So the answer the answer to the question, were they in the original budget? Yes. And as we move forward, we'll continue to update those because honestly, we're under, the costs are lower than what we had originally put in the budget, but we purposely estimated high because we were trying to be conservative because you are a public entity, and we didn't want to, underestimate the cost of the work.
Phil, on phase 2, though, I mean, the 100,000 is really a nebulous number, just depending on how many lots we break this into. I mean, if we break it out to blocks like we've done before, it's probably a reasonable number. But if you go 4 or 8 or 10, lots to a block, you're probably way low there, aren't you?
It's possible, and that's why I put that note in there. The way that we looked at this when I was working through this as Heartland is we kind of look back at our level of effort to get through where we're at now, and we had the discussion of how much of this stuff are we going to have to repeat. Well, a bunch of the A&E, DDA work, that's ground that's been plowed. We don't have to repeat that because they have a good feeling, we have a good feeling. I think Danielle and Tony, we feel good about that stuff. Are we going to get questions from developers on how do we do this and why are you doing that? Developers call and want to go meet at the site. Well, I can't just tell them no. They want to go out and look and kick the dirt. And so we go out there and talk to them. How's the construction going to get sequenced? How are you going to get access to my site for me? All those things occur here. And you're right, Commissioner Arman, that if it's one developer we're dealing with, that's a really small number. We might even just exit the site and let them have it. If it's 20 developers we're dealing with, it's going to turn into potentially a can of worms. Because again, we're not selling finished.
So Phil, when you do the November 10th meeting, and I will not be there, but I'm interested in seeing the numbers. Are you going to break this down to say if it's 5 to a block or 15 to a block or 20 to a block? This is going to be the auxiliary costs all the way along?
Yes.
So we'll have a number to be able to look at it and see the consequences of the size of each transaction we're going to do.
Yes, and we'll have to make some certain assumptions that, let's say that Phase 2 has 40 lots in it. We'll make an assumption that there's going to be 5 buyers that Ignite ultimately selects to sell to in 8 lot increments. So we'll estimate everything based on that, how much are the service is going to be, because now we have those 5 buyers that we're going to have to deal with. Right now, we're dealing with 3 buyers. And I think Tony and Danielle would say, we spend a lot of time doing that. I also think it's important for the board to know, though, that if we sell them in those smaller blocks, the price is probably going to go up substantially higher, and the cost of our services won't match that. They'll still be lower, and so you're probably better off selling in those smaller blocks because you open it to more people. You open it to builders at that point. We think the things we've heard just in this is builders saying to us, "Why didn't you call me and let me know?" Well, it was in an RFP and it's published and whatnot. And so, but moving forward, we now have that list. And as we get ready to roll out the next RFP, we're going to be on the phone to all those brokers and builders and saying, okay, it's coming out, but we're going to be selling them in blocks of whatever you all decide. Is it 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12? And that information will be presented at the workshop for you guys to make that assessment on what you think is best.
I think I'd like to take this through to where these lots are pretty well done, pretty close to being shovel ready, and then sell them in smaller blocks. And I think we'll get way more money for these lots than selling undeveloped land. Developer.
And that's option, whatever you want to call it, that you guys will be presented at that workshop. That's kind of option 1, which is new, and option 2 is do it the same way we did it before. And I in my assessment, I'm in agreement with you just from the administrative standpoint of what we've had to go through with the developers through this first one. There's a more elegant way to accomplish this, a more efficient way to accomplish that part of it.
Well, there's a little more risk the way we did it. I mean, it's okay, but, we're talking here about if there's a delay and we can't deliver the lots by a certain date, at least if we get these lots pretty close to shovel ready, other than maybe we're waiting for final plat approval or something, if there's a delay or something happens, at least we're not looking at big penalties and, litigation or something like that. We're just trying to get them done as fast as we can. If there's a delay, we don't have to worry about the other part of it. It's just a delay. So, I'm not saying we got to sell every lot singly. It might be that builders come in and they buy 4 lots or 8 lots or something, but anyway, that's kind of what I'm leaning to try and maximize the return we get for the taxpayers on this land here and pay for this park.
So that's contract amendment 9A. Do we have a motion or any questions? Any further questions?
So this is an additional 35,000 or 40,000?
140.
Additional 140,000.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept amendment number 9A.
Do we have a second?
Lack of a second.
I think there's some hesitation. Any further discussion?
Well, now I have a question. So we're not on the hook for the 140,000, right? I mean, is this going to be on a what I want to say, a fee basis?
It's
where
on
Tony's working with you, but it's maxes out at 140,000?
It's on an as-directed basis. So as we start going forward and Tony says, hey, go start working on the RFP number 2, we start working on RFP number 2, and the time gets posted against this project on an hourly basis. We'll obviously recycle the work we did in RFP 1, because you guys have made an investment in that asset, so to speak, and so we're not starting from scratch, and we'll bring that forward. So everything even up to this point and moving forward has been on that basis.
So what this motion would be, Commissioner Jordan, would be that you're authorizing up to spending up to $140,000 to complete Phase 1 services and, start entering into phase 2. And the fees will be billed hourly as we kind of move into that. And as was brought up in conversation, this could kind of change on November 10th, depending on where you kind of land on how you're going to effectuate the rest of this project. So but for now, this will set the stage, and it might need to be modified by a subsequent motion once you kind of get your hands better around what you want to do.
Are we premature doing this tonight until after we have our workshop meeting, or is this, I'm just asking.
I would say yes, in my opinion. If we've got the workshop on the 10th, we're going to be discussing this topic specifically and making a decision that day.
Nothing against Welch Comer, I'm just raising the question.
No, do we want to amend it, or do we want to just wait for the 10th and have a final?
And I'll just give you the reason that it actually was brought forward now is because there's a lot of energy to advance as quickly as we can to get the product on the market as soon as we possibly can. And so part of what we're going to, again, kibitzing with Tony, that we're going to roll into is start working on RFP number 2 now. Because there's some improvements to be made in RFP number 2 in advancing that, where, I don't want to call it plug and play, but depending on what the decision is of the board on the 10th, we're going to plug in the decision into the RFP and start rolling it out. Because I feel a little bit, maybe I'm just being too sensitive about it, but I feel a little bit that we're behind because the triangle piece came into play. It's changed the world a little bit. We're trying to get that master planned and be ready to roll out an RFP in November, because you think about that, you get into November, you get responses back in December, January, and now we need to start rolling into negotiations in February. It doesn't matter to us when you guys do it. I just want you to be aware of what the thinking was, why it came forward now as opposed to later, and I don't know if Tony has thoughts on that as well, but that's the reason it came forward now.
Were you saying if we don't approve this 140,000, we need to get started now so we don't waste time, and there's no money to start now if we don't approve the 140,000. Is that kind of what it is?
Right.
Okay.
And I would add that the steering committee is asked of Welch Comer and others for our pre-workshop meeting to update the model and to have like kind of the pre-work leading up to the RFP for phase 2. There's a lot of, I think, groundwork that will lead up to that so that we have an informed decision for that RFP too. So I would agree that, like, I understand the question about are we premature, but I also feel like there's a lot of data points leading up to those discussions that are happening now.
My sense that we just had a discussion every week could be critical. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about, why interject a couple of week delay if we don't have to? And I think time's of the essence. Also just knowing, that time of the year that you're getting into, some of that whole holiday thing and all of that. So my sense is keep the train going.
Yeah. Well, I'm just asking what's going on. So if this is a floating number, I'm fine with that. I'm predicting a snowless winter so we can build all winter.
Would we be billing something, though, that would be changed later on the 10th?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
So we may be spending money that we don't need to spend in the next 2 weeks also.
I think that, well, and Danielle can weigh in, but I think that there's going to be an RFP process that we're going to be working on. There's also some other tasks here. However you guys want to proceed, we just feel that there's been a sense of urgency that the board wants to advance the project and get it out. There's been a little bit of delay with the triangle parcel, and I'm trying not to perpetuate that. But you guys are driving the bus, so you should decide how you want to advance the ball. I'm just here to be the motor in the bus.
It's not going to go away.
Yeah. In my opinion, I'd wait till the 10th, but I'm open to the board's decision.
Well, if we're doing preliminary things we need to do to get to the 10th, and it has to be done anyway. Maybe we change direction a little bit on the 10th, but we have to do what we're doing to get to the 10th. I guess
I would support that if it's something we have to do either way the decision goes. But if we are going to change the decision to individual lots or something like that, will we be paying for something that isn't necessary in the next 2 weeks?
Well, billing will be done on an actual basis too, so
okay.
it's...
So is this stuff we have to do either way?
Some of it
Get
is,
to the
yeah, and I
field.
think that just with the
Okay.
guidance that you guys are giving us right here, I think Tony and I would work under that pretenses. We would look at whatever we're planning to do, and I'd say, hey, Tony, we're gonna head down this path. Is this what you want us to be doing? He may say, no, hold off until post-10th.
And therefore, those funds would not.
E-
Yes,
exactly.
Exactly. So,
I guess under those circumstances, and if that's a flexible number, I mean, I'm fine. I understand. Even though I'm predicting a snowless winter, we may not have one, so we got to make hay while the sun shines and get going on this.
You want to ski, so there'll be snow.
so, yeah. So again, this is an up to 140,000 then, since it's an actual hourly basis?
Correct.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Commissioner Mandel, Commissioner Whitmire? No?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Me? I'd like to see wait. And if it's something that we're going to have to do anyway, I'm all for going forward. But if it's something we're going to waste money on and change in 2 weeks, I'd wait. So that's just my opinion.
I'm
you're-
counting on
Do you
Tony.
do you have a condition then, Commissioner Chapkus, on this?
No, I want the information from Tony on whether this is something that is going to be a necessity for either decision. And if it's not, then I'd really like the board to consider maybe waiting till the 10th. It would be money spent on something that may be changed or altered.
I think that if the board approves this motion, it'll be money well spent for prepping for the November 10th meeting.
And it's only spent when it's
I
actually done.
trust Tony not to let any money get wasted.
I do trust Tony not to waste any
We
money.
trust Tony.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll just pass one quick thing before I step back. Thank you. That the plat, I don't know if the board saw that on the city council meeting last night. It was on consent calendar, so it's pretty unceremonious. But the plat for Phase 1, which is all these parcels here that I mentioned earlier, and Area 6 over here, was approved by city council, will get recorded. And so we actually have real live properties that are going to be ready for sale. And so we're moving along rapidly, and we've got some anxious developers all around that are pushing hard to keep the thing rolling. So it's a pretty exciting time.
Great, thank you.
Bill, was it actually recorded?
I don't think it'll get recorded. It was dropped, I think the mayor signed it. We probably won't record it until Friday. Yeah,
But it's final plat.
it was final plat approval for this area. There'll be more plats as we rolled forward, but there was lots of drama.
5 parcels, all 5?
It was, so it was all 30 lots here, all 24 lots there, these 2 parcels here, and Area 6 over here, and Area 13 down here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, yes, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Midtown Ventures, Tony?
Oh, I'm not in control.
Moving along the agenda, so we have the La Crosse Avenue Extension Project Agreement with the city funding agreement, and we talked about this at the last board meeting. It went in front of City Council. City Council approved the funding agreement in an amount of $1.8 million that the agency is going to contribute to this project. So this is just kind of to effectuate that agreement by a motion.
So moved. Do we finalize the La Crosse Avenue Extension project with the city? I know that's why Troy's still here.
That's why we moved it up. Do we have a second?
Yes. Did you second?
Commissioner English?
Yes.
Oh, he beat me, okay. Just seconded it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
And finally, Madam Chair, just the recurring item on the agenda, Ignite CD support for emergency economic community needs. If there's any board discussion or input on that agenda item.
Has there been any additional requests?
To the agency?
Yeah, for money. Has anybody else come forward asking for any help or assistance?
Not at this time, but I'm anticipating that we will hear from the Downtown Association next month.
I can say, not to Ignite specifically, but on behalf of the COVID-19 Response Fund led by United Way, that we have seen a little bit of an uptick in requests. We're not we're going into a pretty dark season and Kootenai is at full capacity, so I suspect that there will be an economic impact in some way, whether it's schools, seniors, all the vulnerable communities, but I don't know that there's any specific action item right now for Ignite.
I agree.
Okay. Time, any other discussion about that? Time for board commissioner comments?
I have a question, Madam Chairman, maybe more than a comment. When we do our workshop meeting on the 10th, how many people do we envision packing into that conference room?
We talked about that. There's probably going to be space for 5 individuals plus Phil, so the rest would be Zooming in. So Hartman will be Zooming in. Danielle and I will be Zooming in to kind of open up space for folks that want to attend in person, but the rest would be attending by Zoom. And the reason we've chosen the Watchcomer office venue is because of the way it can facilitate a meeting with the technology that he has, showing graphics and showing maps and illustrations. It's just much more convenient at that location. So that's the premise that we're operating under.
How many are invited total?
It'd be the board members.
Okay.
So staff would be Zooming in, Heartland will be Zooming in, so you have Phil and then 5 board members that could attend, and the other board members would be via Zoom.
So it's the technology over a bigger room like this.
And I'll be gone, so I will not be Zooming or there in person, so.
Okay.
I can volunteer to Zoom if there's someone who is passionate about being in person. I would trade off with them. I'll go either way, but if I don't feel strongly one way or the other about being
I'll wait for
personally
direction
present.
from the executive director. I'm open either way, too.
And we can work those details later.
Yeah. Okay.
I just wondered, it sounds like you've got it figured out, so thanks.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
You're gonna get fired. This might be the longest.
I know, I went from the shortest to
I
the
know.
longest.
Commissioner Chapka.